What? You didn't think I was finished hyperfixating on anyone but you, were you?
Among other things.
Hi, I'm Lady Genevieve, and on my channel I talk about entertainment media. 1 year ago, Anyone But You was released in cinemas, after which it became a box office hit. It was a refreshing experience for me because it's happened more than once that I go see a film, I really enjoy it, and I want to do more rewatches at the cinema, but everyone else is sleeping on it, so I don't get the chance. That happened with Dr. Sleep, it happened with The Last Duel.
Cunt.
But in case you're new here, let me quickly recap my journey with Anyone But You. When Glen, Powell, Sydney Sweeney, and director Will Gluck went to CinemaCon to begin promoting it, the internet started speculating that Glen and Sydney were having an affair. But in all that commotion, the thing that I hyperfixated on was the detail that Anyone But You was going to be a modern literary adaptation, and more specifically, an adaptation of William Shakespeare's Much Ado About Nothing. So I made a video about that particular point. I made more videos to keep up with the countdown to the film's release. I repeatedly posted about the film on social media, and it all culminated in me getting to do the film's junket. This is a career milestone. It's my first time ever interviewing a spy kid. Now, as a fanatic of modern literature,
don't get too trashed and I win bonus points.
that actually ended up being a sort of prelude to a year of me more fully embracing and hyperfixating on romantic storytelling and stories that are for the girls in general. It's not a gender thing, it's a vibe thing. And I decided that I'd circle back to both Anyone But You and Bridgerton before the new year. Anyone But You was a massive box office hit. It won that holiday season as far as I'm concerned. It managed to stay in the cinemas all the way until Valentine's Day, and I would know because I kept going to the cinema and seeing it again, and they even did a special Valentine's Day release. And Bridgerton is always one of the biggest shows around when a new love story gets released from that universe. I remain hopeful that these commercial successes will snowball into more romantic comedies and love stories that are fun and whimsical and earnest, being greenlit by studios. I would imagine that we will have to wait a bit longer for the ripple effects of Anyone But You to fully come to fruition with other romantic comedies being released in the cinemas. Although I do know that Glen, Sydney, and Will already have a pitch for another movie that they want to do together. They said so on the public record. I am not leaking any confidential information here. But it's been really frustrating to see this downward trend with romance where these companies only seem to want to greenlight direct to streaming releases with lower funding, which lessens the overall visual flair and production value. If you don't have as much money, that is going to impact the access to equipment for fancier camera shots, better lighting, and the time that is required to be able to film those things and set up the equipment and lights in order to achieve the shots that I personally want to see. What is a quintessential visual signature of romantic storytelling on film? When the main couple kisses and the camera does a 360-degree tracking shot around that couple. We saw this in Bridgerton Season 2, when finally, after a season of delicious enemies to lovers bickering, Anthony Bridgerton and Kathani Sharma confessed their love for one another. They got married, not that we ever got to see a wedding, because apparently Asian women don't get to have weddings in the Bridgerton universe.
I am being very fucking positive.
And after a long honeymoon, it's time to play pall-mall with the family once again. But let's stop to take a break and fully abbreviate this moment.
Can we just take a second and fully abbreviate this moment?
That's not a word.
It's not a real word. It kind of sounds like one, but it's just entirely made up.
Naturally, Kathani and Anthony Bridgerton Sharma need a snog break, and the camera's going to orbit around them. And in Anyone But You, when Ben finds his moving train in the form of Harbor Rescue, so he can go off and find Bee and profess his love, and Glen Powell serves my favorite bit of acting I have seen from him to date.
I thought you were gonna regret it. And I couldn't face the idea of losing someone else that I really loved.
Oh my god! Bee asks a very important question.
So you're gonna kiss me now?
And once again, we are treated to a 360-degree tracking shot while the main couple kisses. This type of shot, where the camera orbits around a subject or subjects in a scene, has a variety of uses. It can be used to heighten tension or make the audience really focus in on what's being orbited around, and emotionally it can be used to convey any number of things. But in the case of romantic filmmaking and storytelling, this type of shot is very frequently used when a couple is kissing, and typically it's a highly cinematic moment. In both of these examples, with Anthony and Kathani in Bridgerton, or Ben and Bea in Anyone But You, this is not their first kiss. They've kissed each other multiple times. They've been physically intimate.
Intimate? Is that how old people say sex?
But we see these orbiting shots when they've overcome the final hurdles of their love story. The miscommunications, misunderstandings, the fear of rejection, the fear of opening up. These are all things we know they're going to overcome eventually, but nonetheless, when we finally reach that glorious moment, the orbiting shot heightens the romantic grandeur. It's a way of communicating the dizzying feeling of these characters being in love with one another. Filmmaking is a visual language, and when these studios and companies underfund the arts, they rob us of seeing artists being able to do their best work. Not a lot of filmmakers have the level of name recognition to get projects greenlit, let alone secure the necessary funding they need to create their art the way they want to. So I think it's important for viewers who are passionate about the arts to be more informed on the process so that they can know how to better advocate for artists. Before I get on to the second point of focus in this video, I want to quickly thank my patrons who got to see an early sneak peek of this video before it was published here on YouTube. There's another bit of fine directing that runs through both of these love stories that I wanted to put a quick spotlight on, and this one involves the 180-degree rule. If you don't know what that is, the 180-degree rule refers to how within a scene that contains 2 or more actors, the camera will usually stay on one side of an invisible line. The cameras can move throughout that space or be placed anywhere on that half, and it will give the viewer spatial awareness of the setting of the scene, but it will also keep the viewer from being disrupted. When you have an editor taking shots from different places on one side of that line and different takes, you want all of that to flow in such a way that the viewer will stay immersed in the story instead of thinking about camera angles. Having said all of that though, it is also okay to break the 180-degree rule, and it can be a great thing to break it if you know how to do so effectively and in a way that will help to communicate a particular thing, a feeling, an emotion to the audience by way of this tool in the visual language of filmmaking. So let's begin with Bridgerton Season 2. Following the disastrous family dinner with the Bridgertons, the Sharmas, and the Sheffields, Anthony is ready to call off his engagement with Edwina. We all know it's Kathani he wants anyway.
We've lost our prey.
I'm convinced that deer prefer the edge of the forest.
But of course, she's the ever-devoted and loving older sister who is hyperfixated on being the caretaker of the family. She loves Edwina. She wants to give her everything, including the man that she's in love with. Denial is not just a river, clearly. So she asks Anthony if they can speak about this. Let's talk out this problem. Let's find a solution. So Kathani and Anthony go into a room alone, unchaperoned. Yeah, okay. You two do that a lot, don't you? Private meetings, unchaperoned. No wonder you two hooked up for the first time in a garden outside.
The old ball and penis.
Now, if you're going to break the 180-degree rule, you have to first establish the 180-degree rule within that space. The audience needs to have a sense of where things are. So we establish spatial awareness of this room that these two are in, and we're fully immersed in the conversation that they're having. And it really feels like a lot of the same talking points we've already heard them get through before. You should marry Edwina. I'm leaving for India. But then, Mr. Anthony, I am a gentleman Bridgerton, he snaps. This was when Jonathan Bailey said, I'm going to make history. And he begins the monologue that we all know. We've seen it go viral 1,000 times on the Bird app that people are currently jumping ship from. I have not jumped ship quite yet because that's where I find GoFundMes that need donations. You can find many of them in the description box of this video. So it's time for Jonathan Bailey to make history. And he launches into the monologue to end all monologues.
Do you think that there is a corner of this earth that you could travel to far away enough to free me from this torment? I am a gentleman. My father raised me to act with honor, but that honor is hanging by a thread that grows more precarious with every moment I spend in your presence.
And there's this very specific moment where we get a dramatic pause between the lines of, "You are the bane of my existence," followed by, "and the object of all my desires."
You are the bane of my existence. And the object of all my desires.
During this pause, the camera breaks the 180-degree rule while it's positioned behind Kate and it's looking towards Anthony. Plenty of fans have seen this and noted that it looks cool, which, yes, I agree. I love maximalism, so anytime you make a camera go whoosh, it'll probably be elevated in my overall impression and opinion of what it is that I'm watching. But this breaking of the 180-degree rule isn't something that just looks cool. It's a technical detail and choice that communicates something specific through the language of filmmaking. It's a clear tonal shift we are experiencing. Before the camera breaks this rule, Anthony and Kathani are up to their usual shenanigans of angry bickering.
Yeah, it's called flirting, you idiot.
It's the enemies portion of enemies to lovers. They love to engage in verbal sparring. We've seen this time and time again, but they've also had something else brewing beneath the surface of that angry tension. And within this scene, after we break the 180-degree rule, that's the exact moment when we shift to the lovers portion of enemies to lovers. That's when we get all that dreaming of you. Do you even know all the ways a lady can be seduced?
Do you even know all the ways a lady can be seduced?
And he calls himself a gentleman. That's not the word I would use, but okay.
A slutatious whore.
As for Anyone But You, we have a strategic breaking of the 180-degree rule, and it's equal parts cute, fun, and salacious. When Ben and Bea first met, they went to Ben's apartment, they made grilled cheese, enjoyed each other's company, they cuddled, and they fell asleep. Very cute, very demure. But Bea walked out while she thought Ben was still asleep, and when she realized that that was an awfully silly thing for her to do, she circled back just in time to overhear Ben running his mouth.
Fuck that. I couldn't get her out of here fast enough. This girl's a disaster. She's a nothing.
Would it be a rom-com if someone didn't overhear someone at the worst possible moment, do maximum damage, and definitely don't have them communicate about that? Just let the resentment fester, because the romance girlies want to see some quality bickering and banter. But after some time apart and time back together, one fake relationship and a Titanic turned overboard mishap with yet another Will Gluck, Natasha Bedingfield number later.
That's my Serenity song. How do you know my Serenity song?
Don't worry about it. We get ourselves a do-over of Ben and Bea's first night together. We've got grilled cheese, we've got cute chemistry. Visually, we're in the same place that we previously were, with Ben and Bea standing behind the counter, preparing their grilled cheese.
Little baby cheeses?
And we're following that 180-degree rule to give the audience spatial awareness of the room they're in, until all of a sudden, we break the rule in order to convey a seismic shift in what's happening between them. We are no longer doing the fake relationship and putting on a show for the rest of the wedding party. This is now their genuine romantic connection reaching a boiling point. No one is here to see this, except for us, the audience. Romantic fiction in film and television, and romantic comedies in particular, are all too rarely rewarded by the critical and award show machine, but having directors who employ quality filmmaking techniques on projects that are given the proper budget and creative freedom to get to work properly makes all the difference in the final result. I've recorded a video on holiday films that should probably already be posted by the time I publish this video, and one of the recurring types of holiday films we've seen released this year is the holiday rom-com. Across the board, the rom-coms were underfunded, which presumably means not enough time or equipment to include the extra flourishes that elevate the cinematic caliber of said romantic fiction. So, am I talking about all of this as an excuse to remind everyone to watch Anyone But You and Bridgerton Season 2? Or do we need to advocate for better material working conditions for artists who are delivering romantic stories with the caliber of filmmaking we need to be able to be truly satisfied as the audience? How about all of the above? Anyway, Anyone But You is available on Blu-ray. I've got mine. And Bridgerton is not available on physical media, but do feel free to terrorize the executives who are blocking physical media. Daniel Craig certainly had words for them.
It makes no damn sense. Compels me, though.